By the time anyone noticed the dog, the storm had already swallowed the valley. Rain came down in cold, slanting sheets, turning the dirt road into a ribbon of mud and washing the scent of pine from the air. He sat alone at the edge of Miller's Bend Bridge. Massive, unmoving, rainwater streaming from his black and tan coat like tears he refused to shake away. No collar. No tags. Just a German shepherd planted in the storm, guarding something in the ditch below. He didn't bark at passing headlights. He didn't move when thunder cracked overhead. He just watched. And if you've ever found yourself drawn to stories that begin quietly, where the silence is heavier than the noise, then stay with this one. Some stories don't shout for attention. They wait. And when they finally speak, they leave a mark. The first person to stop was Pastor Eli Garner. He wasn't supposed to be on that road. The storm had knocked out power across Blackridge County, and Eli had spent the evening checking on the elderly, handing out flashlights from the church basement and saying soft, steady words he wasn't entirely sure he believed anymore. On his way back, headlights cut through the rain, and there he was. The dog sat perfectly still at the mouth of the bridge, rain pounding his back, lightning splitting the sky behind him like a photograph no one would ever print. Eli slowed his truck. "Go on," he muttered under his breath. "Get home." The dog didn't move. When Eli's tires hissed to a stop, the animal finally turned his head. Those eyes weren't wild. They weren't afraid. They were deliberate. Eli stepped out into ankle-deep water. Rain soaked his collar in seconds. "Hey, boy." The dog didn't flinch, didn't retreat, just shifted slightly, revealing something in the ditch beyond him. At first, Eli thought it was debris, branches washed down by the storm. Then lightning flashed, and he saw a pale hand, half buried in mud. Eli's breath stopped. The dog lowered his head, placing one massive paw gently against the wrist, as if anchoring it to the earth. Guarding it. Sheriff Mara Caldwell arrived 23 minutes later. She'd grown up in Blackridge, left for 12 years, and come back after her father's stroke. Most people said she returned out of loyalty. Some said she ran from something. Mara stepped out of her cruiser without bothering with an umbrella. Her dark hair clung to her jawline as she took in the scene. Pastor Eli stood pale beside his truck. The German shepherd hadn't moved. "You touched anything?" Mara asked. "No," Eli said quietly. "He wouldn't let me." Mara approached slowly. The dog's gaze locked onto hers. Not aggressive. Assessing. "I'm not here to hurt anyone," she murmured. The dog's ears twitched, but he didn't budge. Deputy Connor Hale jogged over, younger, restless, flashlight beam jittering across the ditch. "Jesus," he breathed. The body belonged to a young woman, maybe mid-20s. Mud streaked across her cheek. Her dark hair plastered against her face. One shoe missing. She wasn't fully submerged, just enough to be hidden from casual sight. Mara crouched carefully. "No visible animal damage," she said. "Which means he's been here since she." She stopped. The dog pressed closer, shielding the body slightly from Connor's beam. "You know her?" Connor asked. Mara's jaw tightened. "I think that's Leah Mercer." The name hit like distant thunder. Leah Mercer. Daughter of Thomas Mercer. Owner of Mercer Logging. The largest employer in Blackridge County. And the man who had quietly funded Mara's last campaign. The storm dragged on through the night. Crime scene tape flapped uselessly in the wind. The German shepherd refused to leave. Animal control was called. The officer, a heavy-set man named Grady Wells, approached with a catch-pole. "Easy now." The dog growled, low, controlled, not rabid but resolute. Mara stepped in. "Stand down, Grady. That dog's interfering with evidence. He's protecting it. That's not how the law works." Mara met the dog's gaze again. "You've done your job," she whispered. The dog's chest rose and fell slowly. Then, after a long moment that seemed to stretch the night thin, he stepped back. Just enough. As if granting permission. The body was lifted gently onto a stretcher. The dog followed every movement, muscles coiled, ready. When the ambulance doors shut, he whined, a sound so soft it barely pierced the rain. Then he did something no one expected. He climbed into the back. At Blackridge General Hospital, fluorescent lights buzzed like insects. Leah Mercer wasn't dead. Barely alive, but not gone. Severe hypothermia. Blunt force trauma to the temple. Signs of prolonged exposure. Mara stood in the hallway when Thomas Mercer arrived. He came in a tailored raincoat, fury simmering beneath composure. "My daughter," he demanded. "She's in surgery," Mara said evenly. "And why was she in a ditch?" "We're investigating." Thomas's eyes flicked to the end of the hall, where the German shepherd lay outside the operating room doors, soaked fur drying in clumps. "That thing was with her?" "Yes." Thomas stared at the dog with something unreadable, anger, perhaps. "Put it down." The words fell flat. Mara didn't blink. "Excuse me. It was at the scene. Could have attacked her. Medical report shows no bite wounds." Thomas stepped closer, lowering his voice. "You don't understand what this town needs right now." Mara held his gaze. "No," she said softly. "I think I do." By dawn, the storm passed. Fog settled over Blackridge like a held breath. Leah survived surgery. Unconscious. Brain swelling. No certainty. The German shepherd refused food. Refused water. He lay at the hospital doors, watching everyone who entered. Connor crouched beside him. "You know something, don't you?" The dog's eyes shifted toward the forested hills beyond town. Mara watched from a distance. Something wasn't right. Leah had been missing for 36 hours. Her car hadn't been found. Her phone was off. And the ditch where she was discovered wasn't random. It was 2 miles from an abandoned logging route, property owned by Mercer Logging. Mara turned to Connor. "Get me search teams on the North Ridge." "You think she was dumped?" "I think the dog didn't wander into a storm for no reason." As if hearing her, the German shepherd stood. He shook once, rainwater misting the morning air. Then he walked toward the parking lot. Stopped. Looked back. Waiting. That was the moment Mara felt it. Not instinct. Not evidence. Something deeper. The sense that the dog wasn't guarding what had happened. He was guarding what was still buried. And somewhere beyond the tree line, in the soaked earth and broken timber, something waited to be found. Something no one in Blackridge was prepared to see. The dog didn't bark. He didn't whine or circle or act like some cinematic tracker summoned by instinct and coincidence. He walked. Slow. Intentional. Head low, nose testing air that still carried the metallic tang of rain and disturbed soil. Sheriff Mara Caldwell followed. Behind her, Deputy Connor Hale muttered into his radio, calling in search volunteers and requesting permission to cross onto Mercer logging property. "Technically," Connor said under his breath, catching up to her, "we need a warrant if we're going beyond the service road." Mara didn't look back. "Technically, we're following a potential witness." "That's a dog. He's the only one who's shown up to help." The German shepherd reached the edge of the parking lot and paused, scanning the tree line like a soldier assessing terrain. Fog clung low between trunks, drifting in pale ribbons. Mara felt it again, that tightening in her chest. Not fear exactly. Recognition. The dog stepped into the woods. And she followed. The North Ridge hadn't been logged in nearly 5 years. Thomas Mercer had cited environmental compliance delays. Unofficially, the rumor mill whispered about unstable ground, equipment failures, lawsuits quietly settled. The path narrowed quickly. Mud sucked at boots. Wet leaves clung to denim. Connor kept glancing around. If this turns into nothing, Mercer's going to file a complaint so thick it'll bury the department. "He already owns half the town," Mara replied. "What's one more shovel?" The dog moved steadily uphill, occasionally pausing to orient himself. His coat, once sleek, was still matted from the storm. He wasn't stray, not really. His build was powerful, well-fed before the rain, muscles defined beneath fur. "Someone trained him," Connor said quietly. "Military, maybe," Mara murmured. "Or private security. Mercer runs private security." Mara didn't answer. They reached a clearing where trees thinned and the earth bore the faint scars of old tire tracks. The dog slowed, then stopped. He stood over a patch of ground near a rotting stump. No barking, no digging, just standing, staring at Mara. Connor stepped forward and nudged the soil with his boot. It gave slightly. "Call it in," Mara said. Within an hour, the clearing filled with deputies, volunteers, and the uneasy hum of generators. Shovels bit into wet soil. The first thing they uncovered was canvas. Not old, not weathered. A tarp. Connor's face drained as they pulled it back. Beneath it, a second body. Male. Mid-30s. Hands zip-tied behind his back. Plastic sheeting wrapped around his torso. The dog lowered himself slowly to the ground beside the shallow grave and rested his head on his paws. Like this was the place he'd been trying to reach all along. By the time Thomas Mercer arrived, the coroner had already covered the body. Thomas stepped out of his SUV in pressed slacks and polished boots that immediately sank into mud. He looked furious. "What the hell are you doing on my property?" Mara approached without hurry. "Investigating a homicide." Thomas's eyes flicked to the tarp. "That's not my concern." "It is now." Connor stepped forward. "ID's pending, but we found a wallet. Name's Daniel Reyes." Thomas froze. "Just a fraction." "But Mara saw it." "Know him?" she asked. Thomas exhaled slowly. "He worked contract security for us." "Briefly." "Why briefly?" "Performance issues." The dog's head lifted slightly at Thomas's voice. Thomas noticed. He stared at the animal. And for the first time since arriving, uncertainty crossed his face. "That dog," he said carefully, "belongs to Daniel." Silence rippled through the clearing. Mara felt something shift. "Name?" she asked. Thomas swallowed. "Atlas." The German shepherd's ears twitched at the sound. Connor looked at Mara. "That's not a stray." "No," she said softly. "He's a witness." Back at the station, tension hung heavier than the humidity. Daniel Reyes had been reported missing 3 weeks earlier by his sister in Spokane. The case had been forwarded but never escalated. Cause of death: blunt force trauma and asphyxiation. Estimated time of burial: 18 to 20 days. Connor leaned against Mara's desk. "That means Leah was found almost on top of him." Mara nodded. "Too close to be coincidence." "So what?" "She finds the grave, Daniel's killer comes back, and silences her." Connor ran a hand through his hair. "Mercer had motive if Reyes knew something." "He's powerful," Mara said. "Not sloppy. Unless someone else is." Leah woke at dusk. Mara stood at her bedside when her eyelids fluttered open. Confusion. Pain. Recognition. "Mara," Leah whispered. "I'm here." Leah's lips trembled. "Atlas." "He's safe." Tears welled instantly. "They killed him," Leah croaked. "Daniel." Leah nodded weakly. Mara pulled a chair closer. "Who?" Leah's gaze darted to the door. Fear, raw and unfiltered. "My father," she whispered. The word seemed to fracture the air. "He found out Daniel was collecting files," Leah continued, voice shaking. "Payroll discrepancies. Land transfers. Payments off the books. Dad said Daniel was blackmailing him." "And was he?" Leah hesitated. "I don't know," she admitted. "But Dad panicked. He told me Daniel ran off. But Atlas wouldn't leave the ridge. He kept going back." "So you followed?" A faint nod. "I saw them bury him," Leah whispered. "Dad wasn't alone." "Who was with him?" Leah closed her eyes. "Connor." The name landed like a bullet. Mara felt her pulse in her throat. "That's not possible," she said automatically. Leah's eyes opened again. "I saw his truck," she insisted. "I saw him holding the shovel." The hallway outside hummed with evening shift noise. Mara stood slowly. "You need to rest," she said carefully. Leah grabbed her wrist with surprising strength. "He knows I saw." Mara walked out into the corridor and nearly collided with Connor. "You look like you've seen a ghost," he said lightly. She studied him. Measured. You ever work security for Mercer before joining the department? Connor blinked. No. Ever been up on the North Ridge? Everyone has. 3 weeks ago. His jaw tightened. Where is this coming from? Mara held his gaze for a long moment. Then, Leah's awake. Connor's face flickered. Good, he said too quickly. Did she say anything useful? Mara didn't answer. She turned and walked toward the stairwell. Behind her, Connor didn't follow. That night, Mara couldn't sleep. Her father's old service revolver sat on the nightstand. She replayed every memory of Connor Hale, transfers, commendations, the way he'd arrived in Blackridge 6 months after her return. Too clean. Too convenient. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She answered silently. A voice came through, low, distorted. You're digging in the wrong place, Sheriff. Click. She stared at the dark ceiling. Atlas was no longer at the hospital. He'd slipped away sometime after sunset. Security footage showed him trotting calmly out the front doors. Alone. Just after midnight, Connor's patrol vehicle was found abandoned near Miller's Bend Bridge. Engine running. Driver's door open. Blood on the steering wheel. And deep scratch marks along the inside of the passenger window. As if something had fought its way out. Or in. Mara stood beneath the bridge where the storm had first broken open the truth. Flashlights cut across the water below. The river churned dark and restless. A deputy approached, pale. We found this upstream. He handed her Connor's badge. Bent. Claw-marked. Mara felt the night closing in. Betrayal tasted metallic in her mouth. Somewhere in the trees, a low bark echoed once. Not triumphant. Not vicious. A warning. The game had changed. And whatever Atlas had been protecting, it wasn't finished yet. By dawn, the fog rolled back into Blackridge like something ashamed to be seen in daylight. Sheriff Mara Caldwell stood beneath Miller's Bend Bridge and watched the river carry secrets downstream. Connor Hale's blood had dried dark against the steering wheel of his abandoned cruiser. The current below churned fast and swollen from the storm. If Connor had gone in, the river would decide when, or if, he came back. Atlas stood at the tree line, still, watching her. Not wild. Not feral. Waiting. Mara approached him slowly. "Did you do this?" she asked quietly. The dog held her gaze, unreadable. Connor's badge, bent and scored by deep scratches, felt heavy in her pocket. Defensive wounds. Or something else. "Show me," she whispered. Atlas turned and walked into the woods. They moved north this time, beyond the ridge where Daniel Reyes had been buried. Mara went alone. Officially, she'd told the department to grid search the riverbanks. Unofficially, she didn't trust anyone wearing a badge until she understood who Connor had really been working for. The forest smelled different here. Less pine, more earth. A sour undertone of decay. Atlas stopped near a collapsed equipment shed half consumed by vines. The door hung crooked on one hinge. Inside, the air was stale and damp. Rusted chains lay coiled on the floor. Old logging tools stacked against one wall. And something else. A phone. Cracked screen. Mud-caked casing. Mara crouched. She recognized it immediately. Leah's. The device had been powered off, but not destroyed. She slipped it into an evidence bag and turned to Atlas. "Why here?" The dog padded deeper into the shed and stopped at the far corner. Mara's pulse thudded in her ears. There was a trapdoor beneath a sheet of warped plywood. She froze. The wood bore scuff marks, recent. Slowly, carefully, she pried it up. The smell hit first. Metallic. Old blood. Below the shed, a narrow root cellar descended into darkness. Mara drew her father's revolver and clicked on her flashlight. "Connor," she called into the hollow. Silence. Atlas descended first. Not hesitant. Protective. Mara followed. The cellar was no more than 6 feet high, reinforced with timber beams. Plastic sheeting lined one wall. And in the far corner, Connor Hale sat slumped against the dirt. Alive. Barely. His shoulder bled through a torn uniform sleeve. a long gash carved across his forearm. He looked up when the light hit his face. Relief flooded him. "Mara," he rasped. Atlas stepped between them. Low growl. Not rage. Recognition. Connor swallowed. "You think I killed Daniel," he said weakly. "Leah says you were there," Mara replied. Connor laughed, then winced from the pain. "Leah doesn't know the half of it." Mara kept her gun trained on him. "Start talking." Connor's eyes flicked to Atlas. "He attacked me at the bridge," Connor said. "Came out of nowhere." Atlas's ears flattened slightly, but he didn't move. "Why were you at the bridge?" Mara asked. Connor hesitated. "Because Mercer called me." The name settled between them like a loaded weapon. "He said Leah had gone missing," Connor continued. "Said Daniel had been threatening him, that things had escalated." "Escalated how?" "He didn't say. But he wanted the problem handled quietly." Mara felt cold settle in her bones. "And you agreed?" Connor's jaw tightened. "I owed him." "How?" "My sister needed surgery 2 years ago. Mercer paid for it. No paperwork. No debt collectors. Just done. So he bought you." Connor didn't argue. "I thought I was helping him scare Daniel off," Connor said. "That's what he told me. That Daniel was unstable." "And was he?" Connor's silence answered. "He found something," Connor admitted. "Land transfers routed through shell companies. Timber sold off-book. Protected land cleared and resold. Mercer wasn't just logging illegally. He was laundering money through it." Mara felt the scope widening. "Who else knew?" Connor looked away. "Leah," he whispered. The air shifted. "She wasn't innocent," Connor continued. "She accessed payroll records. She knew about the land deals. She tried to warn Daniel to drop it. But he didn't." "No." "What happened on the ridge?" Mara pressed. Connor closed his eyes. Mercer confronted him. "It wasn't supposed to go that far." "That far how?" Connor's voice cracked. "He hit him. Daniel fell wrong. Hit his head on a rock. Accident. At first." Mara's grip tightened on the revolver. "And then?" Mercer panicked. "Said if it looked like murder, everything would unravel. He ordered me to help bury him." "You could have refused." "I should have." Atlas's growl deepened, low, vibrating through the cellar walls. Connor looked at the dog with something like regret. "He tried to stop us," Connor said quietly. Atlas lunged. Mercer struck him with the shovel. Mara's stomach twisted. "That's why he's protective," Connor added. "He remembers." "Leah," Mara said. "Why was she attacked?" Connor's eyes filled. "She confronted her father after finding Daniel's truck hidden near the ridge. Said she'd go public. And Mercer lost control." The words landed heavier than any confession. "He didn't mean to kill her," Connor whispered. "But when she fell unconscious, he thought she was dead. So he dumped her." Connor nodded. "Near Daniel," Mara finished. "Yeah." Mara exhaled slowly. "And you?" she asked. "Why are you down here bleeding instead of covering his tracks?" Connor's lips trembled. "I told him I couldn't do it anymore," he said. "After we found Leah alive. I told him I was going to confess. And he tried to silence me." Atlas's growl sharpened. "He shot at me," Connor continued. "Missed. We fought. I ran. The dog came out of nowhere." "Protecting you?" Connor nodded faintly. "He dragged me here." Mara stared. "You expect me to believe that?" Connor looked at Atlas. "He didn't attack to kill," Connor said. "He attacked to stop." Atlas stepped closer to Connor. "Not aggressive. Guarding." Mara's mind reeled. The dog hadn't been avenging Daniel. He'd been preventing more death. Even from a man who'd helped bury his owner. Loyalty, twisted and terrible, but not blind. Sirens cut through the woods minutes later. "Back up." Mara had activated her emergency beacon before descending. Thomas Mercer emerged from the tree line with 2 private security contractors at his back. His face was calm. Too calm. "You've gone far enough," he said. Deputies moved to intercept him. "You're under arrest," Mara said. "For what?" Thomas replied coolly. "An accident. A misunderstanding. For murder. For attempted murder. For obstruction." Thomas smiled faintly. "You think the county prosecutor will press that?" Connor struggled to sit upright. "I will testify," he croaked. Thomas's composure cracked. "You ungrateful little—" He stopped himself. Atlas stepped forward. One bark. Sharp. Commanding. Thomas flinched. For the first time since arriving, fear touched his eyes. It unraveled quickly after that. Financial records seized. Shell companies traced. Security footage recovered. Mercer Logging's empire cracked under federal scrutiny. Connor survived. He confessed in full. Accepted his sentence. Leah recovered slowly, memory fragmented but steady enough to testify. Thomas Mercer was denied bail. 3 months later, autumn returned to Blackridge. The trees burned gold and copper along the ridge. Mara stood outside the courthouse as reporters packed up their equipment. Atlas sat beside her. Free. Leah had signed over ownership to Daniel's sister. But Atlas rarely left Mara's side now. "You keeping him?" Leah asked softly. Mara glanced down at the dog. "He keeps choosing to stay." Leah smiled faintly. "He always does." They watched the sun dip behind the hills. "Do you ever think about what would have happened if he hadn't sat in the rain that night?" Leah asked. Mara did. All the time. She knelt beside Atlas and ran a hand through his thick coat. "You didn't just protect something," she murmured to him. "You made sure the truth didn't drown." Atlas leaned into her touch. Not as a weapon. Not as a witness. Just as a dog who had refused to abandon what mattered. The valley felt quieter now. Not peaceful, but honest. And sometimes that's enough.